Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mike Kollin at MikeKollin.com. I have a feeling this is going to be a barn burner. I think this video is going to explode your brain wide open. I'm going to try to give you a preview as best I can. I'm not sure if that's even possible. All I'm saying is, I don't know how to say it because the very first part that I'm going to say is not true. But it's the only way I think I can get you to understand it. So let me jump in right there and then follow me through, okay? And I'm hoping it's going to find some clarity before I actually get to the breakdowns. Alright, I'm gonna do my best here, see what happens. There is no right or wrong. There is you and me. There is your beliefs, there is my beliefs, there's her beliefs, there's their beliefs. And they're all okay. Alright, so you're gonna have to have an open mind to even understand what I'm going to share with you. So actually, I believe the first couple pieces are quite scientific, so those are going to be kind of straightforward 3D learnings. So with the either or mentality, that mentality means that somebody has to be wrong if someone is to be right. Because either you're right or I'm wrong. And if I'm right, that must mean that you're wrong. That is a false illusion. Alright, make sure you're sitting down, put your seatbelt on. This is going to get a little bit spacey. Okay, let's just jump in right here. So one of the things that we have learned is that our bodies are where the memories are stored. So your left brain and your right brain process information, okay? So the left brain memorizes information and then it gets stored. So where is it stored? Well, it's stored inside your muscles. It's stored inside your physical flesh, your body. And this is what we call muscle memory, okay? So when you get massage done, especially if someone does pushes with their thumbs really deep into your feet, let's say, and they move around, it'll stimulate different memories from totally radically different ages. So as I've shared in the past, my ex-girlfriend used to massage my feet to help me go to sleep because I used to have anxiety really bad. And what would happen is I would just talk. I would just start talking. And I remember one day she just was laughing. And I didn't really catch it before for some reason, but this time I caught it, and the time before. And finally it's like, why do you always laugh when you massage my feet? And she would say, you're all over the place. I'm like, what are you talking about? She goes, well, 1 minute you're talking about when you're 5 years old and you had this cookie, and then in the middle of that sentence you'll jump over to something that happened when you were a senior in high school in sports, and then you'll get another memory from when you were 7 years old, and you don't even finish your thought. You just ping pong all over the place. I'm like, I do? So from that point on, I actually started paying attention, and I began to notice, like, holy shit, I literally, in the middle of a conversation, will change it to something radically different when she would move to another point on my foot. So I began to notice every time she'd massage me, even like my hamstring or my back, I would start talking about completely different memories and information, and I became very conscious of this. Now, when we were in Hawaii, during this 5-week training, let me back up. So in college psychology, they did teach us about muscle memory, and they were teaching us like your memories are actually stored in your muscles and in your body, etc. And it was Rogerian. We actually did a chapter on, I think it was called Deep Tissue Rogerian Massage Therapy, or whatever it's called. And it was specifically about the learnings that the discoveries that they made due to doing this form of massage, this deep tissue massage. So that was the first time I ever heard that we store our memories in our muscles and body, etc. Because I always thought, well, it's up in your brain, and technically, no, it's not your brain. Those are different processors. You got the left, the right, and the lower. You have 3 different processors plus the frontal lobes. So as I got deep into NLP, hypnosis, in that world, I began to meditate every day, at least for an hour, for many, many years. And I began to tune into myself and my body, my emotions, and I began to notice other people's emotions. I became more aware. See, once you tune into yourself, now you have a greater awareness of others. So if you're disconnected from yourself, you're disconnected from others. So a lot of men, when they come to me, they're like, well, how do I connect with a woman? I go, you have to connect with yourself first, and then she can connect with you emotionally. Otherwise, there's no emotional connection going on. There's complete emptiness, and women don't like that. So one thing I want to say about a lot of these techniques is stop thinking that, oh, okay, well, Mike told me it, therefore I can do it. No, it takes practice, a lot of practice, conditioning. So one of the things I do is I have men come in for a 5-day training, preferably every day. Sometimes you might split it up, like take a day off, or maybe do two weekend days, Saturday, Sunday, then come back the next weekend, and then follow it up on Monday, Tuesday, or whatever, okay? So this way I can condition into you being internal, connecting, because we will do a series of exercises over and over and over throughout the entire day training, including when we go to lunch or go to dinner. And the experience men have when they open up to the right brain is life-changing. It is beautiful to see. You're like, man, this guy finally sees the light for the first time since he was probably 8 years old. They can finally see, hear, feel, and understand women. Honestly, it is the most important, the most rewarding thing that I've ever done in my life. When you get men to open up and they're like, oh my God, it's like they see where they've been going wrong. They see everything. They become more peaceful. They become much more understanding, because it's like, oh, I thought you were just being crazy. Like, no, she's trying to explain something to you, but you can't understand it from the left brain, etc., etc. But it's not only that, they begin to experience the world from the right brain's perspective, and that creates a much deeper understanding of women and where they're at in the moment. So I'm just throwing this image up here. This is my coach, my former coach and cut man, Jacob Stitz Duran, right there on the right. And he's with Mike Tyson in the fight that he just had, I think it was about 10 days ago. And I'm very proud of him. He used to tell us, he goes, I'm going to the top. You're going with me or you're not? He goes, I'm going to the top. He kept saying that every day. He's been at the top for about 30 years, and it's been a really beautiful journey to watch. Okay, so let's get back to the muscle memory, experiencing the world through the right brain. Now, I'm putting some pieces together here you may not quite see yet, but I'm getting to it. Just keep following. You'll get it. So in Hawaii, they were conditioning us to open up to our right brains, to be internal, emotionally grounded, and connected, etc., etc. So we have more of an internal awareness, which means now you can think for yourself. Now, instead of asking, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? Because that'll make your brain spin, because everybody is going to have a different answer. So one of the goals is you had to tune into your body, because your body picks up energy like a radar system from other people. And people are like, well, how do you know I'm about to cry? I'm like, oh, I can feel it. And they're like, what are you talking about? See, before, I would have to look and see and ask them, are you sad? Are you okay? Like, I couldn't tell. Now I can walk in a room and just, boom, I can sense other people around me. I can feel where they're at. But that's only because I learned how to drop down and connect to my entire nervous system. Okay? It's literally like a radar system that goes throughout my entire body. All of my skin is that connection. And it feels vibes from the front, the back, the side, the top, the bottom, all the way around. Now, because I did this 5-week training in Hawaii, plus I did another one about 6 months later, then another one after that, I became a very tuned in person. Then I started to meditate, or I'd been meditating throughout this and practicing these, internal awareness, keyword awareness, radar system techniques. So I've really developed my ability to tune into people, especially when I want to. Sometimes I just go out and play. I don't really care. I don't tune in. I'm not even trying. So this allowed me to begin to understand things on a much deeper level. One thing I want to say again is, do not think that, oh, I heard this, thing that Mike said in his YouTube video one time, therefore I can do it. No. This is something you're going to have to practice and practice and practice and continually get better at. Okay, this is not a one-time thing. So don't think like, oh, I heard you say it. Like, hearing me say it doesn't teach you how to do it. So one of the things they began to teach us was that we all experience the world in a completely, radically, totally different way. We experience each other completely differently. We say one thing and the receiving person hears a completely different thing. So one of the tools that we're taught is you communicate until they get the message. A lot of people think, well, I said it to them. Yeah, but how do we say it? Communication is the response that you get. So you communicate and you wait for their response. If you're not getting the response that is, oh, they understood me clearly, then you're not communicating. You need to change your communication, change the way you communicate, try different things until they understand what you communicated. So NLP, a big chunk of it, maybe even a third of it, is all about different styles, different models, different strategies, and different ways of communicating to different people, because different people learn and understand things in different ways. So one of the things they taught us during this training is some people, not some people. People experience the world, experience their experiences, everything from surfing, walking, talking, looking up at the sky, everything through the way their body is designed. If you're skinny, you experience people's vibrations from their voice differently than someone who has a big barrel belly. Okay? And people people with big barrel bellies tend to talk in a very warm, and they have long resonating words because they're vibrating it in their body. These are what we call auditory kinesthetics. They feel communication and receive communication in a radically different way than someone who is skinny. So they then began to talk about people who have eventually, maybe when they're a teenager, 20s or 30s, they lost an arm or they lost a leg or a body part of some sort. They go through this stage where life doesn't make sense to them. Like they're confused, like something's not, like literally it's like something's missing. And not necessarily the body part, but something like in the world doesn't make sense anymore. Like something's like most of it does, but there's a 10% like it doesn't, like something isn't received in the same way. It's like life is being experienced in a radically different way now compared to before. So over the next few years, every now and then I would bump into someone who's missing an arm or leg, and I would look at them. I could see it in their eyes. Like I would ask a question. At first they were talking blah 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 blah, and then maybe I'd ask a question. And and they would suddenly space out, and their eyes would space out, and you're like, "You okay?" And like, yeah, it's like I should know that answer, but I can't find it. So over the years, I began to have a physical experience being around certain people, going, "Wow!" Like their whole reality shifted, okay, because of this difference in their body. So as I began to continually do these internal awareness techniques, well, what is this? This is the right brain. When you do the internal awareness techniques, it opens you up to the right brain. Now, what this is leading up to, there's going to be a radical shift, completely left turn in this conversation in about 10 minutes. So I'm putting the pieces together so you can see something. So I began to open up. So when you truly do these internal awareness techniques, your eyes dilate. They open up physically, like you can see it in a mirror. You can take a picture of it. And what happens is your heart opens up. You can feel it. It's like your muscles just relax and everything. You can breathe deeper. Even your solar plexus, the muscles that do the breathing, that diaphragm, it's not all tight where you can't breathe. And it's like it's like it becomes deep and it drops down where you can take these deep, relaxing breaths. So what I'm trying to say is, even if you don't believe in the word chakra or spiritual, the fact is physically your muscles relax. So these are just electronic or electrical, that's probably not the right word, energy centers that open up. So when a man or a person is far in their left brain, the pupils get small and their face literally scrunches up, gets tighter and angular. And this is what we call the chakras close, and everything tightens up. Their forehead becomes tight, the top of the head becomes tight, their heart, chest area, their solar plexus, their belly, everything, even their muscles tighten up. So this is when you close your chakras. So over the years before I was learning how to open up, I remember hearing women, like I remember one time I went with a couple friends, and one was this guy's mother and us, and she said, you know, we were on the Golden Gate Bridge looking out towards the sunset, and she goes, when I just open up, how does she say it? When I receive this image of the sunset, it just fills me up inside emotionally. And now this was after my NLP trainings, etc. And I looked at it, I'm like, when you open up and you receive the image of the sunset, what? And she said something to the effect of, when I open wide open, I receive the entirety of the sunset. Now, because I was trained in linguistics, like she was literally talking about this wide open picture, like on my cell phone. You notice how I can change from narrow to wide to medium? That's what she was doing. And her heart chakra was open, and she was receiving the image inside herself emotionally in her chest and her body area. And she said, when it fills me up, and I thought, wow, it's kind of like a funnel that's wide open, and the image, the energy, I think she even said the energy of the sunset fills me up inside. And I looked at it like, okay, that's different. And yet every woman on here is saying, what are you talking about? That's the way I've experienced the sunset my entire life. Well, ladies, men don't. And by the way, this is not about dating relationship coaching. Yes, I teach this and that, but this is what helped me to understand what I'm going to do in a little bit here, okay? I'm going to take a left turn. So here's the deal. When you're only in your left brain, as most men are most of the time, especially after about 7-8 years old, we think this is it, that this is the way life is. And when someone comes along and says weird goobly-gock words like when I open up and receive, and like, receive, open up, what the hell are they talking about? Open what up? Because the male brain is the external brain. The right eye is the external eye. So the left brain, the external brain, the logical processor is connected to the right eye. They crisscross. And the right eye looks out. The left eye opens up peripherally, and it receives like a wide open funnel. So the left eye is literally the receiving eye. And when you're in that space opening up, the world becomes peaceful. Whereas the male brain, it's sending energy out from its right eye and from its forehead, and it's push, 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 push. So the male experience in life is always about being pushy, 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 pushy. Now, if you're a woman who has any sense of sensitivity, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So when we go to the Golden Gate Bridge and look at the sunset, we don't see anything wide open. We're focused like we're looking down a scope, and we're focusing on the sun, or maybe we're focused on the right side of the land on the far right, or focused on the left. It's like we got blinders on. We're looking down this tube. And that's why men's eyes seem to dart left, right, up, down, all around, because they're not wide open and sweeping in this wide open way. It's this pinpoint laser beam, and it's ping-ponging all over the place. So what I began to realize is that men and women are experiencing reality even when they're standing right next to each other, experiencing and looking at and listening to the exact same experience. They are both having a completely, totally, radically different experience. And neither one of them is wrong. They are both correct. This is their experience. And that's okay. Learn from them. Try to see on Halloween, I went over to my friend's house. That guy, Nixon, the guy in the the big wheel, it's called the Yellow Razor, whatever it's called. And I was following him down the hill in that video. I went to his place on Halloween, but he wasn't there. But 2 doors over, there's kind of like this mini party going on out on front. I kind of walked over, hey, by chance, is Nixon here? They're like, no, he's not here. But the guy goes, but I know who he is. I used to live there. It's like, oh, yeah. He goes, yeah, I used to rent a room from him. He has a 2-story house. And And so they kept wanting to bring me inside. I'm like, no, I don't know these people. Oh, it's okay, we're having a party. I'm like, yeah, I think it's kind of intrusive. I don't know anyone here. And then about 5 or 10 minutes later, someone was introduced to me. He said, hey, come on inside. Let's get some food. I'm like, yeah, but I don't know who lives here. I think it's intrusive. They're like, who's this stranger? And I'm like, no, it's okay. It's for the neighborhood. I'm like, And finally, at the third person, I go, okay, I'll go in. So I went inside, and the young lady that lives there, she's probably about 30, I'm going to guess, maybe 32. And I noticed there was interesting artwork all over the place. And I thought, oh, it's kind of cool. Well, the person that I met actually lived there with her. He's her caretaker. So I met her mother, and her mother said I flew in from, I think it was Massachusetts or something like that. I said, oh, nice. It must be a lot warmer here. And she goes, oh, yeah, it's beautiful. And so she goes, here, come back and meet my daughter. So there's two people in the daughter's room. She's in a wheelchair, an electric wheelchair. And her eyes are kind of bobbly, but she's, fairly, normal and good looking and, healthy and all that stuff. But I noticed something was not quite right. And so I noticed her artwork everything was split in half. Like if she did a clay artwork of a face, it would be one side. And it was always the same side of all these different pieces of artwork that was on this mini stand and, the paintings that she did, etc. So they began to tell me that she had a brain injury, and I had explained mine. They're like, yeah, but the difference is she sheared her brain in half. I'm like, well, and there was a word for it. I forget what the word is. She essentially sheared the nerves that connect the left side to the right side. Now, obviously, she became a very right-brained person. Maybe that's where her spirit was in the moment. But she saw everything from one perspective, and from the way they explained it, her eyes, both of them could only see, I think it was the left side of a person's face or the right side. I think it was the left side. So she could only see one half. So that's the way she looks at everyone and everything. She can only see one part, one side. And I thought, whoa. So in NLP, there's something that they call modeling. They teach you how to take on other people's emotions. You match their body language, their tone, their eyes. You do, and I'm like going into science mode, because one thing I've learned is how to say this. How to take on other people's strategies. How to take on their God, what's the word I'm looking for? Take on who they are. Okay. So it's a series of techniques, and you have to be very intuitive to do this, okay? So one of the reasons I feel like, why are you so good at healing people? It's like because I tune into their body, I tune into their energy, and I tune into their body language, and it literally gives me 97% of the information without even talking. The talking is just a very minute, what's the word I'm looking for? Very minute part of the work that I do with people. I'm just talking to kind of, I don't know, keep them occupied, because that's what people think is normal, and I just read in and tune into their energy and their body language, going, oh, I see what's going on here. That's how I do it. So what I was attempting to do was take on this girl's experience, because I'm like, well, how can I get my brain to only see one side of thing? Like, I really wanted to be able to do that. But her mother kept saying, oh, you don't understand. Her brain was sheared. And this other lady was talking. I thought, yeah, I'm not going to get this experience here. I was getting interrupted too much. But that's what I do. Now, she still lives there. Her mother's back in Massachusetts, so I'll just go back and I'll hang out with her for a while and see if that can shift my experience so I can see the world from another perspective. A radically, completely different perspective. Why? Because there's massive amounts of knowledge in that. Her artwork was amazing. It was just like, and I was like, was she really this good at artwork before? They're like, no, that's the thing. Like, she became really good at artwork. Like, she just dove into it, and like, she puts all her heart and soul into it. And like, before, yeah, she kind of did it, but it wasn't like now. Like, it's just 100 times better. Like, it is amazing artwork. So as I was developing my course, male to female communication, one of the things they taught us was left brain languaging, right brain languaging, and the internal. So again, okay, when I first heard this stuff like muscle memory, like, okay, whatever, I thought it was hokey pokey. Let's, you put your right foot in, you put your right foot out, you spin about, do the hokey pokey, or however it goes. All the stuff you learn, like, whatever. You're like, okay, that sounds a little bit far-fetched, until I had the experience, okay? Girlfriend massaged my feet. I was like, cool. And she points out, Michael, you like keep changing your conversation. I was like, I do? And then I began to go, oh my God, like there was memories coming up that I hadn't even thought of since I was 5 years old. It was like the first time remembering that. So then I'm like, oh, okay. So see, to me, that's how you learn, is by physically taking on the teaching, or the teaching that they're trying to help you to understand. By physically taking it on, you're like, oh, I see how this works. So I began to understand the internal awareness, and it began to open up a world. Now, the really cool thing is when you open up to your right brain, you can now see when people in their left brain, because the pupils are small, they're not dilated, the muscles contract, they become mechanical, they move mechanically, versus being in the right brain where your pupils dilate, your skin softens, blood fills up your blood vessels, thus filling up your lips and your cheeks, and everything becomes rounder and softer and more natural. See, when you're in your left brain and you've been there for 15, 20 years, since you were like 17 or not even 17, more like 9, 10, 11 years old, like you're just like, what are you talking about? Open up and receive this magnificent view of the sunset emotionally. Like, what? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Until I had the experience. Now, how I would have these experiences, by practicing these visual internal awareness techniques while I was at the beach, because there's a wide open view, while I was up on a mountain, while I was on literally physically on the Golden Gate Bridge. In fact, every time I go out there, I'll stop and I do this expansive awareness technique, and then I do this internal awareness technique that I drop down inside, and then I start going, oh, so this is how women experience the world. So being able to open up to my right brain fully and completely allowed me to have a 180 degrees experience. And this was one of the biggest life shifts that I've ever had in my life. It's like, like everything becomes different. When my clients first pop open, they'll look out the window, God, look at how green those leaves are. And then they'd been here for about 6 to 8 hours a day. This is usually the third, or maybe the beginning of the fourth day, maybe 2 hours in. And like, man, those leaves, and they'll get up, they'll walk over my sliding glass door, and they'll open up, and they'll walk, God, look how, it's like they're glowing. How come I never noticed that before? They're seeing things from the 5 senses: see, hear, feel, smell, and taste. Everything shifts. So then the question is, who's right? Men or women? Men or women? That's the either or mentality. See, either or forces you to say, well, one of them has to be right. They can't both be right. Why? Why can't you experience the world from your left brain, and why can't she experience the world from her right brain? Why can't you shift from left to right when you want to? Nobody has to be wrong. That's an illusion. The sad part is, we have lived an entire lifetimes, thousands and thousands of years, where everything was whittled down to either or, right or wrong. We can talk about schools, we can talk about the way the families were run. I'm going to use church because it's the easiest way to do it. The Bible was taught to us being filtered through the logical left brain. It changed everything into rules. Remember, it's either or. This causes things, well, there has to be a rule. Someone has to be right and someone has to be wrong by default. So people are getting punished, hung up on the cross, and beaten and tortured because we have this simplistic either or mentality of stupidity. Either or is a complete limitation. Complete limitation. And it turns out the whole time when women read the Bible, they were right. The act of becoming Christ, the act of becoming Jesus Christ, was an internal experience. Every image of Jesus, his pupils are dilated. He uses the word and phrase, look within. He's always doing this internal stuff. Healing is a nurturing thing. The right brain system throughout the body is the nurturing system. Every energy healing course that I've ever taken, you do deep breathing techniques. You do these internal emotionally grounding techniques. These are all things that open you up to the right brain. Healing is a right brain experience. Killing is a left brain. The left brain is that pinpoint. It's the narrow. It's the arrow. It's the sword. The right brain is where energy begins to flow. Now let me show you this chart. The left brain is at the bottom. Okay, that's when you're specific in details, like you're looking under a microscope. And that's actually what it says. I don't know if you can see it, but it says specific in details. And the word why, why this and why that, it brings you down into the details. This is like looking under a microscope. This is like a sword. It's narrow at the tip and sharp, and it cuts into people. It stabs into. It's the penetrator. If you look at the top, and now I'm going to give you some more information that's going to blow you away. This is the wide open. This is the receiving, like a funnel. This is the right brain. The right brain is the bigger picture processor. So the right brain's about being open and receiving. The right brain also is receiving things internally. The right brain also speaks a language called the internal language. So here's how it works. Let's just start from the top. The left brain is the external. It's also the linear processor. It also speaks the external language. It's called the external language. And it goes in a line, L-I-N-E. It's a really simple language. Well, first I'm going to do this, second, third, fourth, like you're going up and down a line. The male genitalia, the penis, is the external member. It penetrates like a sword. This is how men think. This is the language that we use. This is how we process information, through the linear external way. Our penis is the same thing. It's an external member that comes out of our body and goes externally. Whereas the female world is the internal world. The right brain is the internal processor. It speaks literally a language called the internal language. And unlike the left brain looks out to the world. The right brain goes internal and opens up and receives the world. It receives information. So it's got an internal processor using an internal language. It opens up to receive experiences, whereas men go out to have experiences. And guess what? The woman's womb or vagina is the internal genitalia. To further my understanding of let me wrap that up. So we are experiencing the world from a radically different direction, different processing, different experience, different reception, everything. I'm telling you right now, we are not experiencing the world in the same place, even if we're talking about the exact same subject, standing 1 foot from each other, side by side, looking at the same image, the same picture, the same sunset. We are not experiencing the world from the same way, from the same experience. And our entire life, we've been told that women are wrong. We've been told that this is what these are the rules. You got to follow the rules. You're going to go to hell. You're going to be punished, either or, right or wrong. Whereas women was like, no, I think Jesus was more about compassion. Jesus is inside. Like, okay, here's another one that was a huge convincer for me. Or I should say that helped me to understand there's differences in the world. Do you guys remember those 3 exercises I gave you about a week ago, maybe a little bit more, about, like ready, point? Okay, I'm going to do one right now. Now, these are after learning everything that I've been learning and teaching for over a decade, someone introduced me to one of these teachings, then someone did another, and I was like, holy shit. Women do think internally, men do think externally. This just solidified everything in my brain that we're just having a different experience. Nobody's right. Nobody's wrong. So I'm going to give you one of those tests, okay? I'm going to ask you a question, and a lot of you have already done this. So I'm going to ask you a question, and you have to point instantly, immediately. If you pause, it doesn't count. You got to do it instantly. Take your finger, raise your hand up, make sure you don't hit anything. I'm going to ask you a question. Ready? I want you to point. Where's God? Point now. 100% of the men that I've done this with over the 30 years have always pointed externally, outside of the body. 100% of the women first point inside, go, oh no, I'm not supposed to do that, and then they point out. Because they were punished or taught as a child in church, no, God's out there. But turns out women were right. God's inside you. What does Jesus say? The Lord resides within the temple. Then what did he say? The body is the temple of the Lord. And then what did he say? He said, look within. The techniques that I teach you in this emotionally grounding and internal awareness course, and also for men, the Crack the Female Code course, we will go over 2 or 3 techniques every day to get you more internal. These are internal awareness techniques. These are internal connection techniques. These are internal, what's the other word I forgot? Just grounding techniques. They ground you emotionally. When you start to do this over and over, day after day after day, all of a sudden you begin to have a much more down-to-earth, grounded experience, and now you start to understand what Jesus was saying, because now you're reading the Bible from the right brain. And again, the right brain is the addition brain. 1 + 1 = 2. So what the right brain does is it takes one verse, it adds it to the next, 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 takes that chapter, adds it to the next chapter, takes that book, adds it to the next book. It does a process of what we call addition. It's connecting the pieces of the puzzle together, and all of a sudden you see this mastery, grand picture that's amazing. But the left brain, what does it do? It minuses, it separates, it divides. That's why you'll see men argue, well, in the book of Revelation, chapter 3, verse 23 through 24, it says blah, blah, blah. Yeah, but in the book of Isaiah, chapter 3, verse 2 through 5, it says blah. And they begin to argue and disagree, because they're coming from this separation either or mentality, right or wrong. Well, if you're right, that means I'm wrong. So I've got to prove to you and everyone in the room that you're the one that's wrong. And if you're wrong, that means I'm right. That's the either or mentality. And we as a society, as a world, we have suffered tremendously because of this dumb, limited, somebody has to be punished in order for you not to be punished. Someone has to be found wrong in order for you to be right. How stupid is that? So here's my point. Here's my purpose. You are experiencing the world in the way that you are experiencing the world. And that's absolutely right. Now, an either or person will come along and say, oh, you're different than me. Oh, that's weird. Oh, you're wrong. And a both person like me, where I like to have other experiences and learn from other people, I'll say, well, how do you do that? Like, how do you picture that? How do you like, when you hear that sound, where is it coming from? Well, it's coming down and to the right, or right behind my right ear. See, these different positions are what we call submodalities in NLP. So I just start to question and like, so where does that feeling come from? Is it from your hands, your feet, your arms? No, it's like, it's in my heart area, but it's over to the left, and it's kind of small, about the size of a little BB. I was like, really? And that feels good? Well, yeah, it's kind of warm and it spins softly and it's very smooth and round. I was like, oh, okay. Guys, I know women understood that, but guys, those are internal words, internal language that I'm using. This is how you communicate to the right brain. Men and women, you can understand each other. The biggest part is men. They have to take the course. They have to learn how to do this. So, the place that I come from is I want to understand your experience. I literally want to take it on. I want to understand it. I want to feel it. I want to physically take on that perspective so I can be like, oh. See, it's one thing for you to just tell me logically. I can't take it on that way. I have to understand how you're looking at it, from what perspective, what perception, how you're feeling. Is it hot? Is it warm? Is it cold? When I can get closer to that, I can begin to see things from your perspective and understand you on a much deeper level. And that's where I get a tremendous amount of learning from. I'll do this with children. I'll do this with homeless people. I'll do this with a complete stranger from, I don't know, it could be a cashier at a store I've never been to. That doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to say, oh, they're right or wrong. It's more like I just want to see it from their perspective and see if there's something in here that's useful for me. See, I don't look at it. It's like, honestly, I don't even like using these words. I don't even like, I don't like it. I don't like to use either or, right or wrong terminology, because I don't see the world from that perspective. I want to understand you. I want to understand, well, why do you believe that? Where does that come from? Like, what experience did you have, or what did you hear that I haven't heard, or what had to happen in order for you to have that? Because I've never understood it from that perspective. I just want to understand your perspective. I want to understand where you came to your conclusion, or where you came to this belief. Or when it comes to boxing and kickboxing, I'm like, wait, how do you do it? Like, how did you, I don't understand, like, how do you go from there to that technique? That doesn't make any sense. And so I have to literally physically take on, like, what are you doing in order to make that happen? It's the same thing doing therapy with people. Like, wait, how did you do that with that person? Like, well, Mike, you got to see it from this perspective. And then you got to listen and find out where they're at in the moment. And so there's a whole series of things. Okay, I'll give you an example. There's something called provocative therapy. If you haven't been trained in this or learned this, it's, man, I gotta tell you, when I first was introduced to this, I didn't like it at all. What happened was there was this therapist, very dedicated therapist, and he'd had these clients for, a long time, and they were just being wimps. No, I can't do it, blah, blah. And he just one day got so sick and tired. He goes, you know what? You're right. You can't do it. You are a wimp. You are just a pushover. You are just a pussy. And then what happened was one of the clients went, well, I mean, I'm not that much of a pushover. I'm not that much of a wimp. And it completely shocked the therapist. Because that was the whole goal of therapy for these people, was to get them to speak up for themselves, to get them to say something good about themselves, to defend themselves emotionally and personally. And it hadn't worked for I think he had one of these clients he had for like a year or 2 years, and he was just going, oh my God, you're pathetic. And he goes, well, I'm not that pathetic. And he's like, wait, what? And it's like, this person finally stood up for themselves. And so then he tested it on another client who was doing the same, oh, I can't, and he just said, you know what, you're being a real big baby or whatever. And then the client, well, I mean, I'm not that much of it. And he's like, okay, I'm onto something here. So he developed this entire therapy and he called it, provocative therapy. And it turns out it works really good when it's applied in the right situation. And that's one of the keys. Now, there was a big hoopla with Tony Robbins where there's these two women at a seminar, and he used this on them, and he was really kind of, not aggressive, it seems kind of mean. There's another word I'm looking for, I can't find it right now. But he was kind of in their face like, well, I guess you're just not going to get anywhere in life. Well, blah, blah, blah. And it would actually made the news, oh, Tony Robbins said this horrible thing to this woman at a seminar. Well, here's the thing. They found these women, I think it was a few weeks later, and they interviewed them. They're like, I don't understand why people are mad at Tony. Like, that's what we went there for. The problem that I had, it's gone. And it's because he called me on my shit. It's because he put it in my face. Blah, 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 blah. And the other lady said the same thing. They're like, it was the best money I've ever spent in my life. I had that problem since I was a little kid. And now it's gone. Now, being trained in NLP and Ericksonian hypnosis, which is what Tony's trained in, by the way, those two things, and timeline therapy, etc., and having a background in psychology, in the beginning, attending Tony Robbins seminars was absolutely incredible because you could watch the techniques in action and see how much the people changed. Now, here's the left turn. So I watched a video last night of Neil Degrasse Tyson. I always spell that wrong. Or not spell it, but reverse the last two names. And so he said there's no such thing as a soul. Now, he doesn't believe in God. He doesn't believe in a soul. So they showed a quick, video of this man-made, image of like synapses and electricity going through your brain and stuff. He goes, it's just electricity. That's all it is. It's just this process, blah, blah, blah. So when you die, there's nothing there because you don't have a soul. Now, let's play with that for a second. So, you know how I said the either or mentality, someone has to be right or wrong? Well, Neil Degrasse Tyson is absolutely 100%, because you can hear it in the language, well, it's either this or it's that, but, negation. He's a very left brain, analytical, scientific dude. He has zero right brain connection. So, a lot of you are like, well, he's wrong because I have a soul and I know I have a soul. And so now we're playing with that either or mentality. And now I'm going to flip it. Now imagine this. What if what Neil is saying for him is actually true? In other words, what he's saying is absolutely true. He doesn't have a soul. Now follow along here a little bit. Imagine that you were born without a soul. Like you've never had a soul, you've never experienced it, you've never anything. Like you don't have it. Now I don't mean like people who had all their arms and legs and feet and fingers, and then one day they lost half their arm or their hand or something. I mean someone who never, ever, ever, ever had a soul. What do you think or let's say you, if you never had a soul, what would your experience be? Well, you'd kind of look inside and be like, I don't know what you're talking about, like soul, like what's a soul? Like you wouldn't have an experience of it. Therefore you're just reading books saying, oh, everybody has a soul. Oh, okay, yeah, words on a piece of paper doesn't make it real. In other words, for him, since he doesn't have the physical experience of having a soul, he thinks we're lying. He thinks we're in La La Land because he doesn't have a soul. And I'll give him that much credit. At least he's honest telling you, I don't have a soul. So for some of you who have experienced those real deep, what do they call them? Malignant narcissists, like the real deep dark ones. What was the one thing you experienced with them? You started to notice something. You became very conscious of it. In fact, you felt it. There was something missing inside them. Like they were empty. And a lot of people will say it's like empty meat bags walking around without a spirit, without a soul. Because they don't have a soul. Now another thing that I notice about people that don't have a soul is they're very, very left brain people. They love analytics, they love logic, they love science, they love math, and they love proving everybody's wrong except them. Who does that sound like? Neil deGrasse Tyson. His languaging is extremely left brain. It's all about logic. It's linear. It's external. His eye. Now look at his eyes. All of his energy is focused in that narrow pinpoint view. What do they say about narcissists? One of the ways you can spot a narcissist is look at their eyes. I'm not even saying he's a narcissist at all. That's not what I mean. But that's one of the things you notice. Like their eyes tend to bulge out. Because they're overly focused on the linear. Now here's the deal. I've shared with you in the past where when the mother's womb or body recognizes the baby inside the womb to be a male, it douses its brain with testosterone to kill it. Now what it does for most males is it damages the nerves that connect the left side to the right side, the left brain to the right side. It's called the corpus callosum. So it limits the amount of access they have to the right brain. It makes it a lot harder for most men to open up to the right brain. And these men tend to become very, very analytical, very scientific, very left brain, logical, etc., which in and of itself, yeah, that's fine. Now, for those people who really have a limitation to connecting to the right brain, those are psychopaths. They don't have empathy. Empathy is a right brain process. So when Neil is always talking about how there's no such thing as a God, there's no such thing as a soul, well, number one, in order to open up to God, you have to open up to your right brain, period. That's the emotional, creative, spiritual brain. He's not a right brain guy. He has no right brain connection. He openly admits, I don't have a soul. Well, how can you connect to God or spirit and have any connection or awareness of it if you can't open up to it, if you don't have a soul? It's like you don't have batteries in a light, in a flashlight, or you don't have a bulb in the flashlight. Well, it won't work. You've got to have the batteries in the light bulb. Now here's the deal. Watch this. I'm not saying he's wrong. For his experience, the woman experiences the world internally, the left brain externally, people missing their arm, they suddenly life shifts and everything's different. People, deep tissue massage therapy, we are experiencing the world in radically different ways. See, instead of Neil saying, wow, so what's that like having a soul? What's that like, having an experience of God or spiritual experiences? Like, I want to understand. He just says, no, I'm right. you're wrong, you're an idiot. And that's what he does a lot. He likes to do a lot of humiliation and belittling tactics. Oh, you're just an idiot. Oh, you don't have a degree in physics like I do. I'm an astrophysicist. Oh, blah, blah, blah. Everyone's full of shit. And that's what narcissists do. Like, everyone's beneath them and they're just idiots. Because their limited mind is processed, everything is either or. Either I'm right or you're wrong. Either there is a soul or there's not. Believe it or not, Neil, but there's actually more possibilities. One of the other possibilities, and not the only one of the other possibilities is you don't have a soul and other people do. See, technically Neil's right. He doesn't have a soul. He has no idea what it means to have a soul, to the extent that he doesn't experience it. So from his reality, from his experience, there's no such thing, and because of that, he doesn't believe it. Now let's add the second piece. Because he views the world in terms of either or, right or wrong, or right, either you're right or I'm right, we can't both be right, which is the either or left brain mentality is, he says I'm right and you're wrong, and therefore you're an idiot and you're foolish and you're stupid and you're dumb. So here's this lady. She was on a very famous podcast it's called the Sean Ryan Show. He's a very political guy, and I was kind of surprised she was on there. Her name is Angela Ford. It says, meet the army psychic who tracks spies, hostages, and fugitives. She was working for the CIA in what's called Project Stargate. Okay, what they do is remote viewing. Okay, she was with them from 1986 to 1995. Now, did you hear what I just said? She was working for the government for almost 10 years, working for the CIA, doing remote viewing. And so what they do is they would do remote viewing on spies to follow them, to see what they're going to do next, what they're doing right now. Remote viewing is like I can do it. I can tune into Washington, D.C. and go, oh, there's actually really good energy right now, right there. It's a little bit darker over the Midwest, etc., etc. So remote viewing is actually going into the room of where they're at and watching what they're doing. And the government is paying her to do this, and she's been doing this to keep our country safe. So here you got Neil Degrasse Tyson, or Neil Tyson Degrasse, however you say that name. God, I just can't. I'm just going to call him Neil. And now on the very next podcast I watched, this lady's going on and on. She's being interviewed by it, and I was kind of shocked because the person who did the podcast, I thought he was just kind of a solely the Sean Ryan Show. I thought it was very political, very left brain. And I'm like, wow, he's very open to this stuff. Now, people who don't have any spiritual connection, who have never thought of something and then an hour later it happened, or the night before they had a dream about something, then 3 days later, a week later it happened, they think, well, this is all bullshit because they don't have the experience. Alright, so let me wrap it up. So, a lot of people will be like, so, what do you believe? And I say, I don't. I'm going to read this off, something I wrote earlier today. I don't believe, I don't have a belief. I've come to learn that whatever beliefs you choose, they create your life. So choose good beliefs. Your beliefs create your reality, not the other way around. Beliefs are not real, but they are very, very, very powerful. They will create your reality. So I'm not saying that Neil is wrong. I'm saying because he believes that, that's what comes true for him and in his reality. That's his creation, and that's okay. So the young lady in the wheelchair who had her nerves split in half between left and right brain, she's not wrong. She's just right. We were meant to learn from each other. We were meant to have different experiences through other people, from other people, learning from other people. To sit there and say that someone's wrong because they have a different perspective, that's extremely limiting. I want to see it from their perspective. I want to understand them. I can't do healing work with you if I don't understand what's going on. I have to go to the other side. So people with a true either or mentality will just argue and argue and argue. Like, why are you arguing? Like, I'm not disagreeing with you. Well, you said this, and they'll say, well, yeah, you are, because don't you believe this? And I love it when people, that's how you know. They'll say, well, don't you believe this? And I'll say, no, when did I say that? And they'll kind of pause and be like, oh, wait, they didn't actually say that. See, when you look at everything through either or, if you're saying one thing over here, oh, that must mean that you believe this over here then, because it's either or, you can't have both. And they will literally say, well, if you believe this, then you must believe this too. It's like, no, I don't believe that at all. What are you talking? But in their mind, it's, well, you can't have both. It has to be either or. And then it's like, okay, well, maybe you didn't say it, but you implied it or you meant it, right? Nope, not at all. In their world, they cannot get around that until they let go of the either or mentality. Now here's the thing. I am not saying, so this is what a lot of you are saying, oh, so that means I have to just accept anyone in my life even if they're different? No, not at all. If someone likes to smoke cigarettes and you don't like to be around that, you don't have to be around them. That doesn't mean that they're wrong, and it doesn't mean that you're wrong. It just means that they need to hang around with people who are okay with them smoking. That's all it means. It doesn't mean they're bad. It doesn't mean they're doing something wrong. Now, okay, I'm sure you have. Have you ever noticed how people like are hooked on smoking marijuana? They always want to get you to do it, and they even do the guilt trip, like, oh, what, are you too good for me? Oh, what do you think? Oh, it's all natural, man. And they do this whole thing where they're trying to convince you. It's like, dude, it's totally cool. You smoke pot and I don't. Find people that are okay with that. Find people that enjoy your hobby or whatever you want to call it. See, there's nothing wrong with so much. Some people like to drink beer. Some people like to drink wine. So who's wrong? Neither. Either or people think that because everything is, well, either I'm right or you're right. We both can't be right. So one of us has to be wrong. So if you say something, then they're like, oh, well, that means I'm on the other side, and therefore I'm bad or I'm wrong, or they look down on me, or they think like they're better than me. Like they can't help it until they've learned to pop out of the either or mentality. No matter what you say or do, that's what they're going to do. That's how they're going to react. And this, as a narcissist tactic, it's not even a tactic. It's the way they think. They can't see anything outside of that mentality. Like for me to sit there and talk to Neil deGrasse Tyson, in a million years, he wouldn't even understand what I'm saying. He's like, well, Mike, this is kind of the way life is. Well, Neil, guess what? No, it's not. We can actually get along. We can actually be okay with other people having different beliefs. I love being surrounded by other people that have different information that I don't have. Like even Neil. Neil's given me some great information over the years. I love to gather information. Okay, so that's true. Okay, that's been proven scientifically. Awesome. Let me take that. Even if it's just a theory, it allows me to go to a completely different perspective and be like, man, I never even thought of it from this perspective. I learned so much from people that are different than me. I learned so much from random people, especially kids. Also, because kids are so pure. I will sit there and just watch them and listen, and I'm trying to understand, like what is their perspective that allows them to be so happy or allows them to be so curious. That's one thing I love about kids, man. Up until kids are about 10th grade, they're very wide open. They're curious. They look, listen, they absorb. And that's what I want it to be like. That's one of the things these NLP trainings taught us. They taught us to open up again like a child. Kind of like what Jesus said. Okay, exactly like Jesus said. Unless you turn and become like these children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Matthew 18:3. It's that wide open curiosity. That's the right brain opening up to this creative world. Okay? You begin to see things in colors and sounds and flavors and feelings and emotions. Jesus said the kingdom is at hand, and he's right. When you open up like these children, life on earth becomes a heaven. Learn how to open up, find your happiness, find your peace, find your joy, and be around people who are like that. If they argue, if they disagree, if they reverse what you say, like you say A, but they say, oh, you're saying B. It's a game. I'm telling you, get away from those people. God bless you guys. Just remember, other people are different. Some people don't have souls. That's in Bibles and spiritual books. Hell, you've got people like Neil Tyson Degrasse telling us, like, hey man, I don't have a soul, and that's fine. It's possible he's just so far removed and disconnected and cut off from his soul that he's never experienced it. So he's like, what are you guys talking about? Well, since I don't feel it, I don't see it, I don't experience it, it must not be true. No, technically, that's not true. Alright, God bless you guys. If you enjoyed this video, please click subscribe, click the like button, and go ahead and make a comment. And remember, if you want to go ahead and make a donation, there's a PayPal link right there in the description box. God bless you guys. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.